7 billion and counting. A giant mystery. When a group of people settled in Rapa Nui, Easter Island in the Pacific Ocean, they cleared trees for homes and fields. With plenty of fish, wildlife, and crops, the population grew. They carved Moi, a huge human figure of stone, and raised him along the coast. Then, around the year 1680, the carving stopped and the population dropped. What happened? One theory is that the Rapa Nui used many of their resources as their population grew too large. Resources are natural things in our environment that help us live. Food, clean water, energy. At one time, the island was available to provide a small population with food, water, and wood for building. During this time, the people may have used the trunks of trees like wheels to move the huge stones. Eventually, though, the population grew too large for everyone to get what they needed. Forests were all cut down. Many of the people died because they used up their resources. Many people today think the more than 7 billion people on Earth are using up the planet's resources in much the same way. Will we meet the same end as the people of Rapa Nui? How many are too much? If you look around you, Earth may not seem crowded. There are empty houses, fields, and forests. Even New York City, with an average of 27,012 people per square mile, still has room for parks. Overpopulation is not a problem of space. Rather, it is a problem of not having enough resources. Overpopulation means that people have gone beyond the environment's carrying capacity. The largest number that can't live in a space without using up the resources they need in order to survive. Scientists estimate Earth's carrying capacity has at between 2 and 40 billion people. Why such a wide estimate? Because the carrying capacity depends on how many resources each person uses. If everyone on Earth lived the way most Americans live, Earth could not support 2 billion people. That's because high-income countries like the United States are those in Western Europe. Of most of the world's resources, those living in low-income areas, although they outnumber the people in high-income countries, use only 2% of the world's resources. 3/4 of the world's people live in middle-income countries, where more and more resources are being used. 2 of these countries are China, upper middle, and India, lower middle. Even with more than 1 billion people, if everyone on Earth used only what we needed to stay alive, our planet could support 40 billion people. Other species would be pushed out, however, and life would be hard. A recent problem, experts suspect the kind of collapse has led to the decline of the Rapa Nui has happened to many civilizations. In the Middle East, where farming began about 2,000 years ago, populations soared with more food from irrigating crops. However, irrigation can erode soil or leave enough salt in the soil to kill crops. This land, once known as Fertile Crescent because it could grow so much food, wore out. Over time, the theory grows. The carrying capacity of the land decreased and ancient civilizations disappeared. As populations go beyond their carrying capacity, the result can be starvation. the spread of disease, the destruction of the environment, and wars as people fight for scarce resources. If they can, some people leave to find new resources. The Rapa Nui could not leave because their nearest neighbors were thousands of miles across the ocean, and they had no wood left to build canoes. As the European population boomed in the 1800s, people moved to the Americas and Australia. The growth spurt. On 1800, 1 billion people lived on Earth. It took humans 120,000 years to reach that number. By 1927, just 127 years later, we had doubled that number. 33 years later, in 2060, we tripled it, 3 billion people. The year 2011 saw the 7 billionth people on the planet, and the population is still growing as more than 220,000 people each day. The population explosion began with the new technology of the Industrial Revolution. New farming practices, manufacturing, and railroads changed the way people lived. More foods and better distribution meant that more children survived and people were healthier. More people moved from farms to cities in order to work in factories. At the same time, scientists discovered the causes of many diseases and ways to save thousands of lives. More children survived to adulthood, which meant that more adults were around to have more children. The human population boomed. Technology to the rescue. The human population might have grown faster than its ability to grow food, but in the 1940s, the Green Revolution began. Scientists developed special seeds so farmers could produce more food. They developed chemicals to control the insect and plant diseases. Places once unfit for farming could now grow with chemical fertilizers and irrigation. This new farming technology spread across the globe, allowing even low-income countries to grow more food. It brought a threefold increase in food production. Some people believe that this kind of human invention would allow the population to grow forever. Yet new technology brought new problems. More water was needed for irrigation, chemicals used for growing crops polluted food and water, and poisoned the environment. Some people realized that we were destroying the planet they depend on for life. Of course, some resources were renewable. They can be replaced. New trees can be planted. The sun and wind offer huge supplies of energy. Water is constantly renewed through the water cycle. Only 2.5% of Earth's water is fresh. Of that small amount, 3/3 is frozen in glaciers. The amount of available fresh water is less than 1% of the water on Earth. Fresh water is not everywhere on the planet either. Nearly 30% of people, mostly in Africa and parts of Asia, do not have a safe source of drinking water. 70% of available fresh water is used for irrigation in the United States. Underground water in the West is pumped onto fields faster than they can be replaced. Mighty rivers like the Colorado either trickle to the sea or fail to reach the sea at all because so much water is taken for irrigation and cities. As water becomes scarce, much of the cropland that feeds the world will become desert. Some of Earth's resources like coal, copper, and other metals can be renewed. These resources take millions of years to form so they can't be replaced once they are used up. Oil, one such resource, is used in farming and manufacturing, and to fuel vehicles. The United States, with less than 5% of the world's people, uses 20% of the world's oil. As middle-income countries need more oil, the price of food and energy will increase. As the ecosystem is another resource that can't be renewed, ecosystems do the work that keeps our planet healthy. Swamps clean water to reduce flooding, greenlands form rich soils, and forests balance the atmosphere. Yet heavy use of wood and farmland is destroyed many important ecosystems. Half of Earth's tropical rainforests, the most diverse ecosystems, are gone. Thousands of plant and animal species become extinct each year. We cannot bring them back. Our planet is warming too. Burning fossil fuels such as oil and coal releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, trapping more heat at Earth's surface and changing ecosystems around the world. Already we have seen melting polar ice caps, spreading deserts and wilder weather. These trends cannot easily be reversed. The good news: in 2010, the global population growth rate has slowed from a high 2.2% to 1% per year. In many high-income countries, population growth has actually stopped or reversed. Their birth rate is now below the replacement rate of 2.1 children per woman. The replacement rate is the average number of children born per woman. That over time will create a stable population. More people are becoming aware that Earth has limited resources. Renewable resources of energy, such as wind and solar power, are being developed. Many countries have passed laws for cleaner air and water, as well as protection for ecosystems. In some places, forests have increased, though. The ecosystems of old forests are often lost. Even when new trees are planted. The uncertain future. Despite the good news, the world's population continues to grow, mostly in low-income countries. The United Nations predicts a population about 9.7 billion by 2050. By more estimates, this is almost twice the number of people who can live on Earth in a sustainable way. But no matter which estimate you believe, everyone now agrees that human population cannot keep growing forever without destroying the planet. Lowering birth rates is critical. If high-income countries can share Earth's resources more fairly, it can actually help lower the global birth rate. How might they do this? First, educate women. When women are educated and given control over deciding the size of their family, they tend to have fewer children. Second, make sure that children get better health care, clean water, and good food. Families generally have fewer children if they believe children they have will survive. Their governments can provide help for elderly and sick people so that parents will know someone will care for them when they are old. Enough for enough, everyone. Consider that the United States, because it has gone past its carrying capacity, Americans must bring in resources from other countries to keep their standard of living. With more than 7 billion people on Earth, we need more planets for everyone to live, like most people in the United States. Everyone in the world can have enough to eat. However, if people in high-income countries eat smarter and waste less, for example, grain is the world's most important source of food. Yet as meat production has boomed for high and middle-income countries, the third of the grain grown worldwide is used to feed livestock. It takes a lot of grain to create 1 pound of meat. Eating less meat means more grain for people in low-income countries have protection for valuable grasslands. While China surpassed the United States for total energy used in 2009, average Americans use 3 times the food and 250 times the fresh water needed to survive. They're the world's biggest consumers. They could instead be the world's most efficient consumers if they make intelligent choices about how to live. An island in space. The Rapa Nui left records of carved tablets, but no one can translate the ancient language today. Even so, we can still learn from them. Hopefully, the tale of their little island can teach us how to protect our limited resources on Earth, our own little island in space.